Many of you are still focusing on the congressional races, so I do want to talk about that. The first thing I want to say, though, is I did grow up in Flint, Michigan, as she said. One of the things we think about Flint today is what is it, bad water? Yeah, but that's only a footnote for me. I grew up in that community. I lived there until I was 25 years. And the interesting thing about Flint is it has a much longer history than bad water. And when I was growing up in Flint, or actually before I was growing up in Flint, all of my relatives, all my aunts and uncles, my grandparents, they all worked for General Motors. And you could get a job at General Motors without any special skills. You could just come right out of high school, get a job, and that's the way it used to be across the entire United States in a lot of communities. And then when my generation came along, not one single one of my cousins got a job at General Motors. And so I knew that for my own future, I had to leave Flint and I had to go somewhere where I could make a living in a different industry. And so I was lucky enough to negotiate a position with NASA at the age of 17, as Angana had said, and ended up working for NASA for 15 years. And the entire time I worked for NASA, I worked on all these great spaceflight projects that I never dreamed when I was a kid that I would work on. One of them was just in the news this past September. I worked on the Cassini mission that went to the planet Saturn and studied the moons and the rings of Saturn for 13 years before they plunged it into the atmosphere of Saturn. I was actually the telescope manager on that mission. Now I work for the LA Air Force Base. I am an aerospace executive. I manage a team of engineering professionals, and we build satellites and ballistic missile technology to support our national defense. So that's what I'm doing today. Let me see, what else can I tell you about me? So I've been living in Huntington Beach since 2006 with my partner of 22 years. We were able to get married about 4 years ago when the laws changed. So thank you, I appreciate that. You know, I've been a lifelong Democrat, and I think that our values as Democrats are very important for our community because we have a Board of Supervisors who has been really very unresponsive to the needs of the community and engaging with the community. I'm running in District 2, which is against Michelle Steele. Has anyone here been following her? Yeah. Oh, really? Oh, yeah, she's hanging out with Trump. She does hang out with Trump whenever she can. I've been following her for a while, and it really concerns me how disengaged she is with the community. And if you've been following her, and particularly in the Orange County Register, even the Register's been really critical of her, a right-leaning publication. A lot of the issues with her is truth and transparency at the board. They have been taking a lot of decisions behind closed doors, and so we don't have an understanding of why they're making the decisions that they do at the board, which I think is extremely problematic. Another issue we have in Orange County that's been getting a lot of press is homelessness, right? And the sad thing about that is that problem is completely, or at least largely, solvable. We have all the resources we need in Orange County to solve that problem. If you've been following recently, the board solution was to evict everybody out of the Santa Ana riverbed without giving them any place to go. We now have a federal judge that's gotten involved in that, and he's ordering the county government to spend resources that they've had all along. In fact, we learned through the court documents and Susan Price, who was pulled in front of the judge, that the county has over $700 million of resources that they can spend on it that they were just sitting on. The other important point to know about that is that there was a study done by UCI that came out in 2017. It says if we do nothing with homelessness, it costs the county $300 million a year. So we're talking about $1 billion of mismanaged funds against a county budget of $6 billion. So that's a travesty. That's yeah, $6 billion. Yeah, with a B. Yeah, so I think that's a travesty. We need to get people into the county board of supervisors who share our values, because it's not just about doing the right thing for the homeless. It's about protecting our property values. It's about engaging with the community to come up with solutions with the involvement of the community, working across the city governments and coming up with transportation plans and housing plans. And that also brings up another issue with homelessness. A lot of the people on the street who are homeless actually do have jobs. A lot of them work for Disneyland. And they were people who were living paycheck to paycheck. They hit a hard spot in their life where they had a health issue, and they had to choose between taking care of their health or paying their rent, and they made the only choice that they could make, and they ended up on the street. So when we're talking about homelessness, we're talking about a much bigger problem for our county, because we have a lot of people who are still in that category. They're not on the street, but they're living in a paycheck-to-paycheck sort of situation, and any crisis situation is going to put them on the street. So we need to do something about that. And the UCI study shows that if we just help people, if we give them a helping hand to stay in stable housing, it's way cheaper than having them on the street. It costs the county about $45,000 a year per homeless person on the street. And if we just help those individuals to get back into permanent supportive housing, we can bring that cost down to $10,000 a year. And that's only addressing the top 10% most expensive individuals on the street. That's not even addressing the whole problem. If we address the entire problem, we could get the cost down even more. So why aren't we doing it? I can't answer that question, right? You have to ask that of our current board of supervisors. But it makes no sense to do nothing. And yet that's what our board of supervisors is doing. So we need to change that. So what I want to talk to you about now is I want to talk about why it's so important for changing the board of supervisors. And just a couple statistics I think will help you to really get it. So Orange County has a population of 3.2 million people. That's greater than 21 states in the union. And if you think about that, those 21 states have a governor and a legislature. And most of the decisions that are made through those bodies are completely transparent to the public, right? What we have is we have 5 individuals on the Board of Supervisors who preside over a budget of $6 billion a year. So that's a lot of power invested in just a few individuals. Back when the Board of Supervisors was put in place, the population of Orange County, I think, was something like 13,000 people. So it's grown dramatically since then. So it's become super important that we pick individuals for the County Board of Supervisors who represent our values. So that's my spiel. I wanted to give you guys a chance to ask questions, to get to know me a little bit better in the Board of Supervisors. So does anybody? Oh, yeah, in the back.
How many supervisors are up for re-election now besides Michelle?
Yeah, so Michelle is up for election, and District 4, that's an open seat. We have 3 candidates that are running in that district, and also Michelle, or
Sean Nelson?
yeah, that was Sean Nelson's seat because he's vacating it. And then in South County, it was her last name was
Lisa Bartlett?
Lisa Bartlett. Yeah, she's running, and the sad thing is she's running unopposed. We didn't even bother to put a Democrat into that seat.
Because there's going to be one voice amongst the other 4 if you are to win this seat.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
To be effective, we need to get more Democrats.
Oh, yeah, okay, so your point is that in order to be effective, we need to get more voices. So what you're kind of saying is we need to get a majority on the board, right? So, yeah, so let me tell you a little bit about that, because there are things that are positive even if we don't have a majority on the board. First of all, Todd Spitzer's running for DA. If he wins that, then there will be a special election, so we'll have an opportunity to put a candidate in there. But even if that doesn't happen, we have 2 people we can put on the board this year, me and somebody from the 4th District. And even if you get 1 person on the board, those positions come with special appointments. So each board member gets appointments where they can put people into county government so that we can start affecting policy generation in the county, right? So it's really important just to get the wave going and getting one person in, right? So, yeah, thanks for the question. Go ahead.
So how does it work with the primary? Do you win the primary level if you get more than 50%, or does it always go to the November?
Yeah, so we checked with the county board, with the county registrar's office, and they have told us if somebody gets 50% plus one vote, they are the winner in the primary. So I will tell you, Michelle Steele has always been a strong candidate, and the second district is a little more Republican than the rest of the county, so it's not going to be easy. But one thing I can tell you is the amount of people who are coming out of the woodwork to support my campaign is just amazing. And that's an indicator of the emotion and the sense of urgency in the second district. And by the way, if I'm elected to the Orange County Board of Supervisors, which I believe will happen this year, I wouldn't be running if I didn't believe it, we can, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. If I'm elected, when I'm elected, yeah, you guys are teaching me because I'm new at public speaking. When I'm elected, we can make a difference, right? And here's the thing, we just, every single person that I call, because all the candidates we do call time on weekends and nights, they have said yes when I've asked them to volunteer. Every single person. So, go ahead.
Is this determined nonpartisan, or can you put your party?
Yeah, it's nonpartisan, so there will be no D by my name. So let me give you a statistic. So that kind of gets at strategy. What's the strategy for winning, right? And it's really about raising money first so that we can get boots on the ground. So I do, oh yes, my assistant in the back is waving donation envelopes. That's super important, so I ask that you contribute to that. But it is about raising money so we can get boots on the ground and educate people who the Democrats are in the race, in all the down ballot races, not just the County Board of Supervisors. And what I can tell you is, if you look at the 2014 election, 90% of people who voted for their congressional candidate also voted for a County Board of Supervisor candidate in the primary. And if you look at the general election, it was 85%. Well, I think this year we're going to have a lot more Democrats who are going to vote down ballot, but we have to educate them as to who the Democrat in the race is, which we haven't always done as good of a job in the past. So I know people who are doing, I'll get to you, I know people who are doing canvassing who, for example, were doing canvassing in Newport Beach this past weekend, and they hit 2,200 houses and talked to voters. So those are the kinds of efforts that are going on in the county. So I can tell you, if you donate to my campaign or other campaigns out there, we are putting the money to good use. Go ahead, Diane.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that in the county races, you can't say on your ballot statement, I am a Democrat. But what we did, like with Brett Murdoch, is in his ballot statement, he said endorsed by Democratic clubs, so that people would know that. Did you do anything?
Yeah, we've been endorsed by 2 of the Democratic clubs already.
Oh,
I don't think we put that in the candidate statement.
That's a tip-off.
What's that?
That's a tip-off,
Yeah.
that you're the Democrat.
Oh, yeah. Well, I will tell you, we do have to win Republican votes in order to win this district. So I'm not looking to, here's the thing. What I want to do is I want to talk to people about issues, right? And even when I go and I talk to Republicans about issues, they have a lot of the same solutions, but if you tell them you're a Republican or Democrat, they will shut down immediately. So I think it's really important that we talk to anybody who wants to implement common sense solutions in the county, right? And the other thing you need to understand is I have talked to a lot of Republicans over many months, and what I find is when you talk to them, a lot of them are not happy with Trump, first of all. And if you talk to them on issues, they are willing to engage. So that's really the important thing. We need to have common sense solutions in our county. We need to get beyond some of the partisanship so that we can talk to individuals who now are kind of lost within the Republican Party and they're looking for a new home, because a lot of them are. And I think that's an important solution. What you need to understand about that is when you talk to somebody who is a former Republican, they will still describe themselves as a Republican, even though they're really more of an MPP, because identity is something that takes many years to flip. So, but we're starting to do the good work on that. So, any more? Yes, in the back?
Can you explain again, what did you say about the voting, the 50%?
Yeah, if you get 50% of the vote plus one vote, you win in the primary, and there is no general election for that seat.
Oh my God.
Right.
That could be over. It's not.
Right. So here's the good news, at least in my district, I'm the only Democrat running. I'm running against Michelle Steele, who is an incumbent, but we also have a Libertarian in the race, and so that's going to bleed some of the votes off from the Republican side. So it's good. We have a fighting chance to do this, and as I said, I believe we will do it in this race. When I see the ground game that's going on now, it's incredible. I've never seen that. Anybody who's been in politics for decades will tell you they've never seen anything like what they've seen this year. I've talked to people who've been in politics for 50 years, and I told them we got 700 people down at the Democratic Forum in Newport Beach, and they're telling me that the most they've ever gotten, these are people who've been involved in politics for 50 years, is maybe 100 people if they're lucky.
I've never seen this before.
Yeah.
How much do you have to raise, do you think? Like, she's got a lot of
She has over $500,000. We're looking to raise 500 by the general election and 250 by the primary. Yeah. Go ahead, in the back.
Yeah, you mentioned that some of the people that were homeless, that they moved out of the Santa Ana River,
Yeah.
actually work at Disneyland.
Yes.
Okay, I read not a long time ago, about a year or so ago, that in Anaheim, nothing can happen unless Disneyland signs off on it.
Yeah, that I've always wondered about that.
I wonder if any of the supervisors are in the pocket of Disneyland. I don't mean to disparage Disneyland.
Yeah. I haven't seen anything. I'm pretty well read on what's been in the Orange County Register on the supervisors who are there, and I haven't even seen any inference of that.
Yeah,
So
that's amazing to me that after all these years, you know, they moved in 1955 when it was nothing out there, bought up all that land and everything, and Anaheim was just a tiny little place, and nothing they do, that's what I read anyway, nothing they do can be done in Anaheim without Disneyland signing off on it.
Yeah.
I think that's just ridiculous.
Well, you know, and what's interesting is if you look at how Orlando has kind of dealt with their homeless population, they're way ahead of Orange County. So whatever Disneyland is doing in Orange County, Orlando is handling it much better than we are.
Yeah.
In fact, they came out to talk to Orange County businesses to tell them, you need to get in the game and you need to start doing something about homelessness because it's creating a bad name for Orange County. And quite frankly, we have all the resources we need. We don't need anything other than what we've got right now. The solution is to build permanent supportive housing. So the county board plays in this because they can pass laws that provide incentives for developers to build affordable housing. That takes time, so you can't get people off the street immediately, but they should have started on it years ago.
Yeah.
And now, they're up for election, so a year before the election, their solution was to simply evict people out of the riverbed. And by the way, all that does is push those individuals into the cities, and that gets them off from county land, so it's off their hook, right? It's off their land, but it does nothing to solve the problem. It puts a bigger burden on the cities. And quite frankly, what I've heard from the city leaders who are Republican is they're not happy with the County Board of Supervisors either because they're not working with the cities to solve the problem. The Cities Association just created an agreement with 30 cities in Orange County to build permanent supportive housing as a proportion of their population in each city. Why didn't the county board do that? Where were they when they got elected 2 or 4 years ago on that issue? And on top of that, we know from all the studies that dealing with it is cheaper than leaving the problem as it is. You can take care of people and make it cheaper at the same time for taxpayers. I'm not, I'm pretty liberal. I think it's important for us to take care of our own and to prop people up and allow them to show their talents to the rest of the community. We are a community, we need to help each other out, but I also think that it just makes economic sense, right?
Yeah.
It just makes sense. Why aren't we doing that? Go ahead.
So could you quickly just tell us what cities are in District 2?
Oh, District 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes along the coast. It starts down in Newport Beach, goes all the way up to Seal Beach.
Okay.
The only 2 inland cities are Costa Mesa and Fountain Valley, south of Warner Avenue.
Okay.
And then once you get north of Seal Beach, it would be Los Alamitos, La Palma, Cypress, Staten. I think that's it. I think that's all of them. It's Rossmore. It's a separate. Oh, unincorporated. Okay. Yeah, so it does include Rossmore.
Point Park.
Yeah, Buena Park. And then it also includes like tiny neighborhoods of Anaheim and some of the other cities, but nothing substantial.
Can I, just one more thing? I really like you, and
Oh, thank you.
and I would,
I like you too.
well, you make that in a minute.
Well, let's,
Let's get a shot. Yeah. I just want to say that I think the people in this room are very anxious to be working for people like you and would want to get behind you. And I just want to challenge you on one thing.
Sure.
Which is not saying you're endorsed by the Democratic clubs. And if you have a libertarian and you have Michelle Steele, I've been canvassing. I cannot begin to tell you how many men and women say, I don't care, I'm only voting for the woman.
yeah.
So whether they are educated who Michelle Steele is, there are people who may check the box because it's a woman, Mimi Walters, or,
Yeah.
there are people who will do that.
Yeah.
The women, they're not in this room, but I can promise you, I asked this guy, I said, which women? He goes, I don't care, I'm voting for women. And then I thought, wow, and so just to say, you are running against a woman with people who are uneducated on the other side who are voting.
Right.
So, I wouldn't be throwing my Democratic
can't-
support